Okay. So yeah, empowered nutrition, redefining your relationship with food. So I'm doing this presentation in particular because some people have been coaching for a while, and there is still this kind of relationship to food, which I think is holding some people back. So first of all, it's understanding that problem. So I don't know whether if maybe you can put a 1 in the chat box if you've ever said this, or continue to say things like, I ate really badly today, I did really badly, or I was good this week, and then I ate really badly this weekend. So if that sounds like something that you do, yeah, put a 1 in the chat box, because I know that there are still lots of people who I hear mention this quite a lot, and even in some of our check-in calls for those of my one-to-one clients, this kind of talk can come up. And so how this approach affects your behavior, obviously there's a lot of shame around it. If you're always associating food with being good or bad, you're obviously going to automatically feel this shame or guilt around your diet, around what you're kind of eating, and that can lead to negative self-image and low self-confidence. So I feel like that this happens quite a lot as well, that low self-confidence where you have a day where you don't eat as nutritiously as maybe you know you can, and therefore you just think, oh, I'm shit, got no self-control, I'm really shit, I can't do this. Or you have like one weekend, or maybe like several weekends in a row where you where you maybe have more booze than you thought you should, and then you just feel really crap about it. So you're instantly kind of setting yourself up for thinking, I'm a failure because I can't be good, I can only be bad. So simple ways of thinking about how you can, one of the biggest things around anything is about your mindset. So for me, if I go ultra running, there are many times that I want to stop, and it's really about the mindset. Same with a 5K, and it's the same with eating nutritiously. It's reframing the narrative in which you talk about food, you talk about your diet, you talk about your health. So instead of using the words good, bad, and restrict, switch to thinking about abundant nutrition and nourishing. So food is not good or bad. So you're giving it more power than it should have by calling it good or bad. It's just food. It's your mindset that makes it good or bad. So first of all, just let go of any of those words when you describe food. It's either nutritious, nourishing. So it's either nourishing for your mind, mood, and body, or it's not. So try and start reframing, and it's not going to happen overnight, to thinking in those ways. So, oh, great, I had a really nutritious week this week, or that wasn't such a nutritious weekend. So in transforming your mindset, thinking about every meal is a chance to nourish. So you have the power to shape your life in anything through the decision making you choose, and to have a conscious decision making. So, a lot of the time around food, it can be unconscious. You just reach for something and you eat it. And so it's trying to reframe everything you do through, you having that conscious choice in the decision you make about the foods that you're eating, whether it's nutritious or not. And I think it's really important to think of, having this trick of thinking, nothing is off limits. So thinking, if you want a cake, you can have a cake. It's not that you can't have anything, but it's trying to think about when you make those decisions about food that you're having, thinking about the ones that are most nutritious for your mood and your brain and your body is key. So we've talked a lot, if you've been coaching with me for a while, we've talked a lot about macros. For some of you that are doing one of my 28-day programs, we haven't done so much of that because it's about your gut. But then the fundamental methods of the Kickass Midlife Methods are all about focusing on your macros. So you're thinking about old-fashioned ideas about calorie restrictions. And if you just get your macros right, you can immediately start thinking about abundance with your nutrition. So we know that slow release carbs, things like oats, green leafy vegetables, whole grain rice, quinoa, berries, stoned fruit, those things like that are really good for us. They release energy slowly. So that's really good for your energy, your focus, better sleep, and you're going to have a less cortisol spike, which so you get decreased inflammation and anxiety. Fast release carbohydrates have their place, but mainly that you're going to fast release carbohydrate if you're suddenly doing something that requires a massive quick burst of energy in a context. If someone's got their audio on, just make sure your audio is off. And then there's your lean protein. So thinking about your fish, meat, seeds, nuts, tempeh, edamame beans, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, all of those things are kind of lean sources of protein. And the protein, we've talked a lot about it if you've been on these presentations before, about how it keeps you feeling fuller for longer and the benefits for repairing your muscle fibers when you exercise, so therefore helping to build muscle. But there are other parts of protein that are really important. It's really important for your cartilage, your joints, and also is used in the production of hormones as well. And then those healthy fats, so oily fish, avocados, seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, olive oil in moderation. Again, production of hormones, healthy joints and brain, cognitive function, your skin, and your immunity, your immune system. So you're always going to eat outside of those parameters. So it's trying to overcome that kind of shame and guilt around it, because that's not benefiting you in any way. So rather than being like, I feel shit about myself for eating food that's not as nutrition, just recognize that at some point you will always going to have something like that. We're all human. I ate reblochon cheese that was melted yesterday. It was delicious. I'm not going to feel guilty about it, because the rest of the time I'm really consistent within the nourishing abundance of foods that I do eat. So how do you kind of get practical tips for, it's all very well talking about mindset, and as I mentioned at the beginning, it doesn't happen overnight. It's like anything, you've got to kind of train your mind to take on that mindset. And in the meantime, what can you do to ensure that, like, practical tips? So what I see a lot with my online clients often, where sometimes you may be snacking quite a lot, and then that snacking can sometimes turn into things that are not so nutritious, or it's nutritious but you have so many of the snacks. It's often that you end up overeating anyway. It's often because the main meals, your breakfast, lunch and dinner, are too small. And that comes from a lifetime of like growing up from the 70s, I think, where tips were things like to go on a diet and lose weight and eat off a saucer, or like think, obviously you need to think about your portion sizes, but for most people, I'd say 90% of people on this program, the meals often are too small. So it often means you're not full enough. It means that you want to snack. So if you're finding that you do snack quite a lot, then have a look at the size of what you're eating during your 3 meals a day. Have a go increasing what you're eating for those meals and see if that has any effect on your snacking. Also, it's like, don't live like a monk. Go out for dinner, go out for social occasions. In order to have an empowered approach to nutrition and not feel guilty, shameful about it, you want to be able to feel that you can live a full life, and you can if you're thinking in those ways about eating from a macronutrient point of view. If you're really worried about the choices that you're going to make in a restaurant, look at the menu beforehand. If you're meeting someone, if you want to go out with friends, think about you making the choice about which restaurant it is, and then look at the restaurant menu beforehand. Decide before you even get there, so you don't have to look at the menu when you arrive and be tempted by something else. Or if you're going to go out and think, I'm just going to go out and eat whatever I want, fine, but own it. Don't feel guilty about it. That's what you've done for one evening, one weekend. And then as long as you're eating nutritiously the rest of the time, it doesn't really matter. So don't feel guilty. Don't give up tracking and don't give up, basically. And this is something I often see as well, is stop fearing food. I think in order to get this mindset around food where you are thinking about it as nourishing, and you're enjoying food, and that you can eat healthily, it comes from giving up that fear of food. So I will see this often in terms of people who'll stick to the same kind of meals all the time, and they're quite bland because you're a bit scared of food. So you just think, oh, I'm just going to stick to this because I know this is good for my diet. And actually, it's really about, rather than thinking about what can't I have, what can I control, it's thinking about embracing food, trying new things, trying new recipes, because that will expand your knowledge of what's nutritious. It will expand your knowledge of the foods that make you feel good in terms of your energy levels, your mood, all of those things. So think about taking a cooking class. Think about going to those, like, you know, they have one night workshops where you can go, or look at the recipes that I give out every month. Pick something from it once a week and try it. It's always hard doing anything new, especially when we get older. You think, oh, I can't be arsed, I can't be bothered. Just, it's not that difficult. Just take one meal a day, one meal a week, try something new, and then you've got a whole new repertoire, something to use that's nutritious for your mind, body, and emotions. And then think about this, is that you don't learn something overnight. So don't feel guilty about the fact that sometimes you're going to go off track and not be eating so nutritious. It's like learning about macros, learning about what's not great, what's not nutritious for you. Don't just give up. Don't just track what you're eating in terms of you know, your macros. Think about tracking how it makes you feel. Like, do you feel more energized one day compared to another day where you might not have eaten so nutritiously? How does that make you feel at the end of the day? Does it affect your sleep? Does it affect your anxiety levels? All of those things. And then learn from it. So as with anything in life, it's about being conscious of your behavior, learning from the behavior and moving forward through it, and not feeling like shameful, guilty about what you've eaten. So I'm going to now invite Susie on. If you want to have your video on, Susie. And so Susie, yeah, Susie's going to be, we're just going to talk through like Susie's experience of the program, and just how you've kept to, like, how you've learned about what's nourishing for your body through this program. So tell us a little bit why you started with this program, and what you were kind of hoping to. I know that was quite a long time ago now.
Yeah. Well, really, I kind of felt uncomfortable with myself, and just felt I wanted to lose some weight, and just see how things would help me change. I mean, I'm 56, and I just wanted to get fitter again. I think I did as you know, Rachel, I did a half Ironman 2 years ago, and haven't really done anything since. So I wanted to get back into that, and
but from the nutrition
felt that the
point,
weight
yeah,
had gone on.
Yeah, and your body shape has changed quite a lot, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And how was that kind of before you started this kind of program, and like thinking about tracking your macros? What was your relationship to food, and how different is it now compared to before you started?
There was a lot of snacking. I'm very keen on crisps and chocolate. And we're not talking a small bag of crisps, we're talking the family size bag of crisps. Because once I start, I just can't stop. And chocolate, dairy milk in particular. And both of those have now gone. I haven't had a crisp in over a year. And chocolate is now vegan chocolate.
And how is that?
If I have it.
Yeah. And how has that kind of mind shift come about? How have you gone from reaching for the crisps and the chocolate to like not? What do you think are the key things that have made a difference for you?
I think just doing the 28-day program and working out what changes to make and how I felt. And certainly part of that 28 days was going vegan and there was gluten free, and I've tried to stay as gluten free as possible since then. I've tried to stay as dairy free as possible.
And why? Why? What
So
difference did that make to you personally? Did you feel that it made a difference in terms of how you felt?
gluten free, I'm no longer as bloated as I was. That was a huge difference. And in fact, this weekend we had friends over, and we had pizza, homemade pizza. And of course, I didn't have gluten free, I just had normal. And I had stomach ache on Sunday evening. And I thought, oh, I know why that is.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So,
and then going on from the 28-day program, obviously the 28-day program, for those on this call who might be listening onto a podcast later, is one of the programs that's part of the Kickass Midlife Method that focuses a lot more on rebooting your gut. So there are elements of that where we eliminate gluten and dairy, because in midlife, some women, not all women, can have more of an intolerance to those things. So that's the program that Susie's talking about specifically there. But then going on from that, now that you've been coaching with me for, I think, 14 months, 15 months, and it's much the focus on macros. Had you done anything around macronutrients before?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
And I find it pretty easy, actually. Last year I was printing off your recipes and going through those. And we've got firm favorites that we do tend to stick to, and not being very I haven't been trying anything new recently. You know, the salmon tandoori, we have that every week. Without fail, because it's nice and easy, really flavoursome, and it's got everything there.
And what do you think you find, how for you, because I know some people still on this call still might find the nutrition hard. So what for you do you think has made it easy? What is it about it that for you has like helped you make that mind switch where it's like, oh, that's just, I've just got my macros, it's quite easy?
Not quite sure.
Do you think it's like looking at your plate and just, you visualizing what the macros are?
I have to say, I don't think too much about it. It's sort of just become second nature now.
So you've you've followed some of the recipes and know that the recipes contain those macros. You like you like the food, you enjoy it, and therefore that helps you adhere and be consistent to nutritious food. Yeah. If I'm putting words in your mouth, Susie.
No, that's spot on. That's spot on. I mean, and then if there's a recipe I really like, we just make a slight variation. Might use, if it's a curry, a prawn curry, just mix in something else. Instead of prawns, use something else. I mean, we're very keen on curries in this house, so we could have curry 2 or 3 times a week and just have a different protein. Just have a different protein in it.
And I think that's the thing, talking about my earlier bit where I was talking about fear around food. Sometimes I know that people can, you might look at a recipe and think, I haven't got that and haven't got that, I can't do it. And actually it's just being brave enough to think, well, all I need to do is, okay, I haven't got that protein source, but I've got that protein source, I'll use that instead. I haven't got the spice of chili, but you've got, turmeric, or, it's just about exploring and embracing more food things, an abundant approach to it, and trying it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So does anyone have, thanks Susie for coming on. Does
That's
anyone
okay.
have any questions they'd like to come on and ask, or you can ask in the chat about that, about anything that we've mentioned, anything that you're kind of, you still struggle with in terms of that nutrition and being mindful of what you're eating. Or if not around this topic in the last kind of 4 minutes or so, anything else that you're currently facing in your current program that you're finding is difficult, or you have got a sticking point with it? I would say, just to finish off, if there isn't one thing I would add to really help some of you, is to always, we're talking about tracking in the macros, but also in your exercise, in your workouts that you're doing, track your workouts, track your weights, track how many you've done, because that's the only way you will see progress, and the only way that you'll feel a bit more motivated by the workouts and see your progress. So if you're just working out, just doing the workout, you're just ticking a box, then you won't see that fitness and strength develop, and you might be picking up the same weight over and over again, week after week, and then you won't progress, you won't build your muscle, which is also really important in midlife. So track everything. And I know there was a question in the group where I was saying, what are you training for at the moment? And lots of people were saying, oh, actually there's quite a lot of people at the moment doing triathlons and running and this, that, and the other. You don't have to be doing a big event like that to see progress. I think somebody said, I can't remember who it was, or I feel maybe I should do that in order to be more accountable, or I can't remember the exact words. But another way of looking at it is to also think about, how are my weights progressing in my workout? Because that can be your event. Your event can be, especially if you're really busy, you don't need another thing to have to train for. Your event could be your weights. How much weight am I lifting in a squat at the beginning of the month compared to the end of the month? Or how many reps at that weight can I do in 60 seconds, which some of you will have in your program. But you need to track it so that you're aware of it, and that is your race. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. And any other questions that you have after this that come to mind, then do ask in the group.